Pressure measurement today. The common mistakes that we do when we do the blood pressure. What is blood pressure and the differences between systolic and diastolic? What does it mean, blood pressure? The definition of core of sand, equipment needed for blood pressure, timing of blood pressure and factors that affect blood pressure measurement procedure, common mistake when taking blood pressure, and my references. First, what is blood pressure? Blood pressure simply is the pressure exerted by the circulatory blood on the wall of the artery. It is also known as a mitochondrial contraction called the systolic blood pressure, and the relaxation of the heart is called the diastolic. It is one of the important physiological parameters of the body, which is why it includes the five vital signs, which is the blood pressure, the temperature, the respiratory rate, the heart rate, and the oxygen saturation. Why do we measure blood pressure? We measure blood pressure to give us insight on what is going on about the patient's health. It helps us to diagnose certain condition and help us to monitor the patient's condition as well. We've got something called the core of sound. The core of sound is the noise we hear at the artery that is being compressed by blood pressure curve, and the sound goes like this. The corrupt sound goes like this. If you can hear, I don't know if you can hear that sound. The sound. Can you hear the sound? That is the sound we hear in the curve when we're trying to do a blood pressure. Equipment needed. We all know the equipment needed for blood pressure. And the major thing I want to focus on this afternoon is timing of blood pressure and factors affecting blood pressure measurement. Blood pressure varies blood pressure varies throughout the day and can be affected by exercise or caffeine consumption. Also, it can be affected by nutrition, that's what we eat. Also, alcohol, stress, smoking, all these factors can affect blood pressure. Also, patients taking antihypertensive medication, it is preferable for you to measure their blood pressure immediately before taking the medication, because after they taking the medication, it brings down their blood pressure. And the procedure we do before taking blood pressure, ask the patient to empty their bladder, as full bladder in study may also elevate blood pressure. Patients should have rested for 5 minutes. Properly position of the patient. Use the correct blood pressure curve. Timing of the blood pressure is another thing I want to focus about. Timing can also affect blood pressure. Nutrition, alcohol, stress, smoking. Ask patient, also patient taking antidepressant or antihypertensive medication. It's also preferable for you to do the blood pressure before giving the patient the medication, because after taking the medication, the blood pressure could come down. And asking patients to empty their bladder is another factor in study that may elevate the blood pressure measurement. Patients should have been rested for 5 minutes. That means that when you want to do a blood pressure on patient, mostly when they just come back from procedure and things like that, they ask you to do the blood pressure on a patient, and then most of the time we get high reading. The reason why we get the high reading is because we have not allowed the patient to rest for 5 minutes or 10 minutes before doing the blood pressure, and the blood pressure is slightly elevated. So proper positioning of the patient, as well. Some patients lie flat on the bed, and when you do the blood pressure lying flat on the bed, you always tend to get a low blood pressure. And then another factor that affects blood pressure measurement also can be when we don't use the appropriate blood pressure curve. That can also affect blood pressure. And then the last thing is common mistakes. Not like I said previously, not allowing the patient to rest for 5 minutes, not changing the curve. At times in some units, in some outpatient, we only have one curve for the whole patient of the day. When you don't use the appropriate curve for the patient, it tends to get wrong reading. Not checking the pulse correctly, not allowing the patient to support their arm, allowing the patient to support their own hand, lowering the curve too fast. That one, lowering the curve too fast, is when you're using a manual blood pressure. So, thank you. Shh. 5 minutes. And then I'm going to show you how the practice. This is just a braiding. Don't crucify me, man. At least you hear the corrupt sound. The corrupt sound is the B. B. Let me see if I can still play the corrupt sound for you. So I'm just testing these. That's the corrupt sound. Okay. Thank you.